All right.
Garrett
Very,
says you're
very
sounding
groovy.
good. That's all that matters.
That's all we care about.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Can I go up just a little bit in my cans? Just a little bit of volume, more in my ears.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much. We love that. Perfection. So Scott has invited, me,
Yes.
to the Georgia Aquarium
Who doesn't love the Georgia
to
Aquarium?
do a remote. We're going to do a remote, right, Scott?
How great would that be?
I
my
think it's going to be
God.
fantastic.
It would be fantastic.
Yeah. Actually, you know what?
Yes, dear.
I need
You
a
want
pen.
I got a pen.
Do you have a pen?
I do.
Okay, and we're about to start. Yes.
Yes.
All right. Let's go.
Can I ask a question? Is it Seaquarium or a Seaquarium? The Miami Seaquarium?
Seaquarium.
Miami Seaquarium.
Yeah.
Instead of
Seaquarium,
aquarium,
all right.
Seaquarium.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Ready?
You bet.
And here we
Yep.
go. Some bumper music, and then we're going to be off and away. Here we go.
Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network.
You make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven.
A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at ubnradio.com.
Animal Magnetism, exploring animal care for creatures great and small, conservation and preservation in today's world. Find out what a single voice can do to make a difference in the lives of animals. Animal Magnetism with Carolyn Hennesy starts right now on UBN Radio.
Welcome, listeners, once again to another fabulous episode of Animal Magnetism. I am here with Andrea Compton.
Hello.
And via Ohio, where she just got engaged, the fabulous Camille Lacotte.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, my dear. And we have an amazing guest with us today, Scott Quigley from the Georgia Aquarium. But before we get to that, I need to let everybody know that Animal Magnetism is brought to you by Coma Relax and Coma Unwind, the perfect ways to relieve stress and anxiety using natural supplements such as milk thistle, valerian root, rose hips, and melatonin. If I want to sleep just a little better, easier, faster, and I always do, I either drink a 12-ounce can of lightly carbonated liquid relaxation or a concentrated multi-berry shot, and that is all I need. And a nice cuddle with my dogs. I cannot recommend Coma Unwind and Coma Relax highly enough. Ask your local retailer to stock Coma Relax and Coma Unwind, or order it online at comawind.com. Unwind your mind. You deserve it. Listeners, preservationists, conservationists, those of you attempting to cultivate the preservationist heart, we have such a treat today. Once again, dispensing with news and views. We may actually just continue to dispense with news and views because I have the best guests on this show, and I want to give them as much airtime as possible. Mm-hmm. Scott Quigley of the Georgia Aquarium. Okay, Scott, I know you're there.
I am, Carolyn. I want to say, first of all, your sponsor product sounds amazing. I'm going online as we speak to order a bushel basket full.
Please do. Yeah, what I'd love the little multi-berry shots. They are so groovy. They taste so great, and it's just like take one and read a little of Atlas Shrugged. That'll put you right to sleep. Put you right to sleep. God bless Ayn Rand. But no, they are pretty darn fantastic. Let me give my listeners just a little bio, a little rundown of the Quigley. Can I do that?
You can do it of the Higley.
Of Higley. Did I call you Quigley? Have I called you?
It's important to my mother.
Well, listen, it's important to me, and I don't know how I got Quigley.
I don't know.
That's fascinating. My brain is a fertile garden, and things grow there that I just don't even know what the heck's going on. Hi, Scott Higley. Jesus. Okay, Vice President, Communications and External Affairs of the Georgia Aquarium. You are responsible for all the communication efforts for the aquarium and building its reputation as the most amazing and educational aquarium experience in the world. At the Georgia Aquarium, Higley, You oversee the integration of public relations, promotional marketing initiatives, and digital communications. 25 years of high-level communications experience in various disciplines. You have served your current position for nearly 5 years, and you are proud to serve as the chair of the Communications Committee for the Alliance of Marine Mammal Parks and Aquariums. Hoo-yah! The AM.
Wow, I sound really impressive.
You are, well, as far as I'm concerned, you are. And that's an international organization, so good on you, mister. Good
It
on
is.
you.
It really is. 61 members around the world. It's a very cohesive community of animal advocates, and really, really excited and proud to serve in that role with that organization.
Well, I can tell you, you and I had a little private conversation. It's just sort of a pre-interview, a pre-discussion on Friday, and I can tell you they're the lucky ones to have you.
Well, thank you.
So we have a whole bushel basket full to talk about today. The first thing I want to ask you, though, just to kind of get a set a foundation for my listeners, is how did you first become involved with the Georgia Aquarium?
It's a great story, Carolyn. I tell people that I found out what I want to be when I grow up when I turned 41 years old, and it was my first day on the job here in 2009. I had a pretty varied career working in a number of different industries and disciplines leading up to the day I walked in the door here at the aquarium. And to be honest with you, in 2009, I probably couldn't have told you the difference between a dolphin and a whale. And I admit that freely because it's been a complete transformation since that time. I've discovered a calling, a passion, if you will, that I think I share with all of my thousands of colleagues of animal care advocates throughout our community, the zoological community. And it's something that gets inside of you. And once it's inside of you, it never leaves. And the desire to do something beneficial and positive for animals, not just the animals in human care in our accredited facilities, but that care and that desire to do something for animals extends to wild populations too. And it's such a vibrant community of people who care so much about animals, and it's such an honor and a passion and a wonderful thing to be a part of.
I could not agree with you more. When the worm turns, so to speak, within you, when the light bulb goes off and you have that aha moment and you realize that the steak on your plate used to be living, breathing, up until maybe 2 months ago, whatever it was, it changes you as an individual. There are movies that I loved, 2-3 years ago, that I have such difficulty watching now, knowing how they treat the animals, knowing how those animals were treated. Even, and again, we learn every day. We're learning more and more about how to change the past behaviors in terms of how we treat animals. But even knowing that everyone was probably doing the best that they could at that time, I still have trouble watching certain things, listening to certain things. Once you are changed, you're changed forever. Andrea has a question about the first time, like what was the animal? What was the animal that did it?
When you walked in, what was that first moment that inspires you now to become the
good question.
conservationist?
I would tell you that it probably wasn't just one. It's such a transformative experience when you see and come to understand the many things, but the level of dedication that our animal care experts provide, not just at Georgia Aquarium, but throughout the community. And when you actually can watch that and be a part of that and lay hands on an animal during a health procedure, or whatever it is. I mean, it's the behind-the-scenes aspects that the majority of the public actually don't get to see, even though most facilities, in Georgia Aquarium included, do have behind-the-scenes tours and programs. But, for example, our facility incorporates a 10,000-square-foot animal health care facility that really is state-of-the-art. We opened back in 2005. And as a result of that, we were able to apply a lot of the key learnings over decades of the zoological community in creating our facility here. So almost every aspect of our animal care is truly state-of-the-art. But we have an amazing world-class healthcare facility that provides an incredible level of preventative care to our animals. And it's something that we're really, really proud of, and most people don't get to see or even really know about. But to answer your question, I think the species that I was most intrigued by are probably the beluga whales, the cetaceans, beluga whales. We subsequently added dolphins to our living collection here in 2011, and that was an incredible thing to be a part of. And the marine mammals, the southern sea otters in our collection, most of which were rescues from the California coast, and provided homes here at the aquarium. It's just really remarkable, and the opportunity to be able to connect with these animals in a setting like this one is really unmatched, and it's so important, so critically important to, I think, the public's understanding of all of these animals and the challenges that they face in the wild. And it's a key part of what we do here is educating the public. It's a part of our mission.
Let me ask you, just to kind of before we get to the meat of the matter, really, in terms of what I know you and I want to go over today. Do you ever have sort of open house days where the public can go in and see that 10,000 square foot facility, where they do sometimes get behind the scenes tours?
We do, yeah, Carolyn. We offer formal behind the scenes tour packages, but then we also do a really cool thing that a lot of people still don't know about. We do overnights here at the aquarium. It's the coolest thing.
You sold her.
You take your bedroll and you can literally. There's a whole educational aspect to it, but it's also tons of fun. And so our guests go behind the scenes throughout the evening, and they get to talk to a lot of our healthcare professionals and our veterinarians and our water quality professionals. And then, there are fun films and there are craft activities, and then you literally lay your bedroll out next to some of the most amazing animal habitats and exhibits that anybody has ever laid eyes on.
You've got three
so
ladies.
You've
got three ladies who want to come out and sleep next to the sharks.
I like the sharks. I want to do that.
We're on a plane.
Oh.
We are on
You can
a
do
plane.
that.
Wow, those whale sharks are amazing on y'all's website.
I will see you in a few hours.
Yes. yes. In fact, you know what? And Garrett, our board runner, you just take over the interview. We're on a plane. We're getting on the plane.
Well, what I like about our overnight program in particular is that it's not just a visit of a couple of hours or 3 hours. It literally is 8 to 10 hours, sometimes 12 hours. And that gives an opportunity for a guest to truly become immersed in this environment, no pun intended, or rather pun intended, I guess.
Seriously.
And, they have a chance to interact with people who are here every day, people who've dedicated their lives to these animals and to these species. And they get to hear about all the different aspects of animal care and learn in depth about the quality of care and the level of dedication. I happened to observe during one of our overnights not long ago, one of our animal care professionals who was asked a question by one of the overnight guests, and she said, "So what's your work schedule like?" And he said, "Well, it's pretty much here." He said, I frequently, give up Christmas, holidays, because with my family, because the animals need me. And because this is what I chose to do for a living, it's a commitment. And the way that he described that to the guest, it literally almost brought her to tears.
Good.
And I thought, well, that's what it's really all about. Being able to impart that level of dedication and in an informal setting like that, but on a level that the average guest doesn't get to experience.
You walk away changed. You walk away, and I swear to God, your DNA is changed for the better. It's expanded. You walk away sort of, in your perspective, you're like 2 inches above the rest of the crowd, and you and you have almost a global now perspective, and it's not just the sea creatures that you want to protect. You just understanding that these things have just living, breathing hearts and souls and minds, and you want to do everything you can.
You got it, Carolyn, and understanding that we are all connected on this planet. We are all connected.
True. That is
regardless of the environment in which you live. Human beings, animals, marine mammals, cetaceans, we are all part of the same ecosystem.
Absolutely
and
true.
I think that's lost on a lot of people, unfortunately.
Oh, listen, most this is a statistic that we quote a lot, that there are 75% of the people in China who believe, or is it's either 75 or 25, and it's like, well, never mind. There is a large portion. I say I quote the statistic, and then I don't even have the number. But there is a ginormous number of the Chinese population that believes that elephants were simply put on this earth to give us their ivory, and that they drop it. That an elephant doesn't have to be killed to get that ivory. And I think in this day and age, how is it that anyone has this notion, has this idea, but the disconnect is so vast. The chasm is so wide between people who look at a steak and just think, yep, that just magically appeared. Mm-hmm. Nothing had to die for that. Mm-hmm. It's
one of the things that we teach here at the aquarium is the interconnectedness between species, and I think that as a takeaway for us as an educational facility, both in our formal education programs with students, but also with everyone who comes through the doors, I think is so very important.
Mm-hmm. Agreed, absolutely agreed. So listen, let's get to the heart of the matter. When you and I first started conversing back and forth via email, you wrote a paragraph. You would add there's a wonderful quote, and I'm going to lift this quote, and I think you will not be adverse to me saying this quote on the air, because it's actually what we want to talk about, and here it is. I'm of a mind these days we need to specifically address the claims made by animal activists, which most of the time are agenda-driven and way off base. As you know, the voices of science, logic, and love of animals in our community are in danger of being drowned out by those who spread misinformation with their misguided agendas. If people only knew that those actions don't help animals ultimately, it will hurt them and the various species. There is a whole network of public display facilities that is under attack from radical animal activists who claim that they're advocates. So let's talk about the ground that we, the advocates, let's talk about the ground that we've lost. Hello. We should probably start out by saying that I think everybody who is advocating for animals, quote unquote, is very well-meaning. Yeah, agreed.
And it comes from a good place. It comes from a desire to help animals, and I think it's the same desire that brings a lot of the dedicated professionals into the zoological community in the first place, because they want to work with animals, they want to help animals. So it's hard to criticize people because I know that their hearts are in the right place. And ironically, those of us who feel like we're under attack in the zoological community, we often say, gosh, we start out at the same place. We start out wanting to help animals, but it's the tactics that we use that are so very different.
Agreed.
And, we are so solidly behind what we do here in the community. Obviously, we are. I think the thing that sometimes is lost, there are two main things I think that are in question. One of which is the quality of care that we provide animals. And unless you are on the inside, I say this after my many years of experience, relatively many, unless you are inside of these organizations, I can understand where it might be difficult to fully comprehend the quality of care that accredited zoological facilities provide.
Agreed.
It is extraordinary. The other aspect is, and we here at Georgia Aquarium, who have traditionally embraced entertainment as a means of opening hearts and minds, our common motto is touch the heart to teach the mind. And, adults typically shy away from classroom settings. So while we are an educational facility, we don't strive to create, a school. What we want to do is to educate people by bringing them in and exposing them to new ideas and concepts. And we do that through a variety of different means, but we do use entertainment as a means of doing that. But there's a question out there right now, is that morally and ethically right?
Well, first of all, yes, it is, and I'll tell you why I think it is. Okay. We had Jack Hanna on the show. We've had Grace Stafford on the show, both of whom I know that you know, and both have the exact same perception. Animals, either in the wild or in captivity, in a wonderful zoo or aquarium, they need to be stimulated, they need to be enriched, and they need to be exercised. And why not? The trainers are going to go and work with them and bond with them and have these amazing relationships with them, and they're going to stimulate and exercise them and enrich them. And why not let the public in on that? That's
sure.
So of course, and charge the public a few shekels and keep the place going. You need to do it anyway. Let's let the public see how wonderful these human-animal relationships can be, and the animal gets exercised. The mind keeps active. The neurons keep firing. That all happens at the same time. Okay, so let's let a few people pay to see it because first of all, the first bonding comes, as far as I'm concerned, visually, and you got 10,000 people in a stadium, in an arena, seeing what the animals are going to be doing anyway. Absolutely let them see it.
Sure. And when there's an opportunity to showcase their natural behaviors which are exhibited in the wild, and incorporate that within a moderated training session, or even let's call it a show, is very, very important because it exposes people to these animals and it makes them care about them. It's just human nature,
Absolutely
Carolyn, and
right.
I know you know this. It's
Absolutely
just human nature that we care about, and we would work to protect and conserve the things that we know about and care about.
Of course.
And how do we know about them if we can't see them?
Listen.
How do we know about them if we can't form a connection with them? It's really, really hard to do when you're standing on the beach and you see dolphins 300 yards out in the ocean, and people go, oh, look, a dolphin, and you see a dorsal fin for a brief second. And then that's all. It's hard to make that connection.
Again, I go back to the story that I go back to. Why do we want dolphin-safe tuna? Why do we want dolphin-safe tuna? Because so many of us now have been to the Georgia Aquarium, the Miami Seaquarium, Aquarium of the Pacific, and we've seen the bottlenose dolphins up close. We bonded with them. We watch flipper, whatever it is, however it is that we've come to it. We don't want any of those animals hurt now. But it's because of that. It's because of interaction. And let's face it, there aren't a lot of people in this lifetime that are ever going to go out onto the ocean solely for the purpose of seeing a dolphin, or there are not a lot of people comparatively are going to be swimming with dolphins. These facilities are mandatory. You say that you feel like you're under attack. And as far as I am concerned, accredited zoos and aquariums are under attack. And I've got a story which rocked my world. And the thing is, I just don't know how to combat this level of misinformation. And I was at an event a couple of years ago with an actor. And this actor also well-meaning, but a strong activist. I mean, just incredible. And we were talking about elephant conservation, and this actor named a particular zoo, very, very well-respected, huge zoo, and said, well, this particular zoo has a team of hunters in Africa, and it pays these hunters to go and find elephant families, kill the adults, steal the babies, and bring them back to the zoo, because the babies are cuter and the babies will draw more attention. And I looked at this person and I said, I don't think I heard you correctly. Are you saying that? Are you saying what I think you're saying? And they said, oh yes. And I said, no, this zoo does not. And I was cut off at the knees, and I was said, no. I need to educate you, Carolyn. You don't know. You don't know. This zoo murders elephant families and brings the babies back. And I thought, and they believed it, lock, stock, and barrel. And I just looked in this person's eyes and saw the little flickering. And I thought, I don't know how to combat that. I don't even know what to say to that. But that's the level of misinformation that's being put out by the radical activists. So what do we do? How do we combat that? How do we gain ground back?
I would tell you it's exponentially harder. I mean, that would have been a horrible misconception 10 years ago, 20 years ago, but it's much harder to combat now in the day of social media and information sharing. And for example, the millennial generation, I read a statistic recently that 70% of millennials get their news, quote unquote, from social media. Yeah. So that's a bit of a concern, and there seems to be a bit of a lack of vetting information across all generations that is also of concern. And and there's another aspect of human nature. It's not good or bad. It just is what it is. People sometimes just want to believe the worst.
Yeah, it's true. That's very, very true, and that's but okay. So what do we do?
Back to your question. How do we combat that? What do we do about that? I think it's very, very important that the zoological community and members like Georgia Aquarium are getting their proactive positive stories out there. Carolyn, the content that we have to share with regard to the fine and extraordinary work that's done by the biologists and the veterinarians and the scientists associated with just our facility are just amazing. And so I think it's incumbent upon me and my colleagues and others like us in the zoological community while we have always been telling those stories, and we have built an incredible base of fans and supporters. I think the figure now, Carolyn, of annual guests at accredited zoos and aquariums just in the U.S. is 182 million people. Yeah. And worldwide, that figure is 700 million. So that's an amazing base of people who understand. They get it. And they're supporting us with their ticket dollars when they come for visits. And, in the case of a Georgia Aquarium, the revenue that comes from ticket sales goes directly back into the care of the animals here at our facility. But it also goes into conservation programs and field research.
Right.
Our team literally goes around the world and is doing active research on a number of different species. And that's data that we can compile and then share with the rest of the community, share with the scientific community. And then we have an even bigger picture, better understanding of a global ecosystem, but in particular, a lot of the species that we champion.
Listen, you said you have some California sea lions
Yes.
and otters that, listen, they didn't just magically crawl to the Georgia Aquarium. You had to go and get them, and there were dollars behind that. So
As a matter of fact, right.
Yeah.
We work in partnership. I think it's an important story to tell, too. We work in partnership with a number of other zoological facilities, and those animals came to us through our relationship with the Monterey Bay Aquarium,
Nice.
south of San Francisco.
Nice.
And, the fact is that a lot of sea otters in that area are orphaned because their mothers are eaten by sharks or their lives are otherwise compromised. And so the aquarium there has an extraordinary sea otter program.
They do.
And so not having room for all of the sea otters that unfortunately meet that fate, we do have this relationship. And so I believe we have currently 5 otters who have come to us through that relationship.
Wonderful.
And, those otters are not native to this part of the country, so that's a wonderful way to educate the public about a species which is, native to another geographic area entirely that residents of the Atlanta area and Georgia in the southeast would never probably otherwise see.
Okay. You've got all of this information. You've got the statistics. You have compiled stuff, all this information on our side, so to speak. I mean, I'm going to sort of draw a battle line here. How are you at the Georgia Aquarium? How are you disseminating this information? I mean, are you using the social media tools? Are you getting out via Twitter?
Yeah, we're really fortunate. We were an early adopter in terms of the social media. So we had an active Facebook presence as much as 6 years ago, about 250,000 fans and followers on Facebook. And so that is obviously a wonderful means to get some of that information out there. But we're taking a much more active stance and positioning ourselves not only as an entertainment destination, but also a conservation-minded animal advocacy organization.
Wonderful.
And so we're gradually morphing our...
Uh-oh. Where'd he go? Is he there?
Scott?
We've lost Scott Higley.
Did we lose Scott?
I think we might have lost Scott.
Scott.
You know what, though? You know what's interesting?
Text him.
We'll get him back.
Yes.
But it's an interesting thing that he just said because it is true. And I think this might be a topic for another show. People want to believe the worst.
Oh, yeah.
People want to believe the worst about organizations, individuals, causes, and that's a fascinating mindset. I'm not quite sure why that is. Is it simply to make ourselves? Is it to make ourselves feel better? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, but look at what we're inundated with.
Okay.
The news, everything is so negative, and so I think people just expect that.
Expect. Scott, are you back with us?
I'm back. I was on a roll there.
You were. But and you know what? And we're gonna get back to your social media campaigns and it's in a moment. But while you were gone and we missed you terribly, we were talking about why it is that people want to believe the worst. And I think with regard to animals, that's a topic for another show. And maybe we can have you and Gray Stafford on, and we can speak to that because it's critical. It's critical getting in underneath that mindset. We are the slings and arrows. We're pummeled with so much stress, so much negative every single day. I think it's probably just easiest for us to believe the worst. But that's a topic for another show.
I agree, Carolyn, but I also think that it's inherent in human nature that people feel like they want to be part of something bigger than themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And with an awful lot of negative information out there, not just about us and what we do, but about just about every aspect of our lives. If you look for 2 minutes online, you're going to see something negative about anyone and anything and any company and any organization. And so there's a desire for social change. And unfortunately, it's misapplied as it relates to the zoological community. It's I mentioned, we've talked about the misinformation which is typically spread. Your example is a perfect one, and one that potentially could be very damaging. And so I think, back to our information campaign, I think it's important that we are always out there with facts proactively and that we're constantly engaging this massive community of zoo and aquarium supporters worldwide. One of the things that I'm excited about in the coming weeks is that in my role as the communications chair of the Alliance of Marine Mammal Parks and Aquariums, we're going to be conducting a proactive social media campaign through our members' social media networks, just telling some very positive stories. Some are just fun facts about the animals in our care and animals for which we're concerned and for which we advocate. But just getting the information out there proactively and engaging the people who already support us, making sure that we're constantly getting our messages in the hands and the minds and the hearts and the eyes of those individuals. And to make sure that they're constantly supplied with the right information, with the facts associated with the quality of care we give animals and every other aspect of our operations.
Will you keep me supplied with that information? Can I?
Got it.
Because I want to actively participate in that. So
You've
you
got
and
it.
I
There
will
will be daily social media posts, and every single one will be just chock full of some really good information.
Fantastic. Cool. Then I will repost.
Yeah.
I will
Wonderful.
repost daily. And that will be my joy to do.
We appreciate that.
Let's talk about Richard Branson, Virgin Holidays, because you told me a fascinating story. Let's talk about what he did and the U-turn that he just made.
Yes, well, Sir Branson had announced a few months ago that his company, Virgin Holidays, would no longer work with organizations which would take cetaceans from the wild. Cetaceans being dolphins and whales is a broad explanation of that. And so, that's a bit of a concern for the community in some ways, because it's important that we continue to maintain our populations of animals in human care. We must do that because we have to have these populations of animals as a study group, an observation group. We can always, and we do this as a community and as individual organizations and scientists, go into the wild and study wild populations, and it's important that we do that too. But we also have to have the animals in our care, and as the oceans continue to change, the animals, wild populations will be faced with challenges that we can't even anticipate now.
But which we have created for them. Thank you very much. With the pollution and the absolutely.
And so, unless we have populations of animals in our care, and there are a number of different ways to ensure that we can do that, we're relatively helpless. We have to have the data that we can compile from studies on both groups of animals in order to have a complete picture of what those animals' needs are. And then we have a solid base of data so that we can go as a community and advocate for animals in their natural habitats, do what we can to inform conservation efforts on their behalf.
That is the crux right there. We need them in order to be. We need them in captivity, in order to be in our care, in order to be able to advocate for them in the wild. That's the nugget, right there.
Correct. And then there's another step to that. We need to be activating those who advocate for us, for zoos and aquariums. We need to be activating this group so that they are fully in support of everything that we do on behalf of animals globally. And so I think that's a critical piece of the puzzle, where the zoological community has traditionally been thrilled to have the millions and millions of visitors and fan support via social media and other means. I think we're at the point in time where we're going to be asking people to take some other steps in terms of advocating for the work that we do and becoming part of the movement.
And so Sir Branson, somehow the light went on in his head. Someone got to him. Is this correct? Because now he's wanting to have a conference. Is this correct?
Exactly. And going back to what I said earlier, I think that it's all very well-meaning. I think that he wants the best for animals, and his organization wants the best for animals, just like we all want the best for animals, we in the zoological community.
Right.
So there is a summit meeting this week in which a number of advocates, animal advocates, will be meeting with members of Virgin Travel.
So that he can now advocate to work with organizations and to promote on Virgin Holidays organizations that have animals in their care.
Exactly.
In other words, he's getting another piece of the puzzle. He's getting the other side of the story.
I understand that there will be individuals representing all points of view at that meeting. So I think the outcome of that will be very interesting.
Very interesting. I wish you were going.
Yeah.
I wish you were going. I'm just saying.
Well, you know what they say about being a fly on the wall.
Who are you going to wire? You're going to wire somebody and listen in. We're going to wire someone and listen in. Camille, I think you had a question.
Yeah. So Scott, let's talk about Packie, the elephant at the Oregon Zoo. and Lolita, an orca, at the Miami Seaquarium.
Sure. You know, Packie is such an interesting case at Oregon Zoo, and I'm not a spokesperson for these organizations, certainly, but as a more than a passive bystander here in the zoological community, I can relate a couple of stories. Packie was born at the Oregon Zoo in 1962. And has lived his entire life there and is extraordinarily popular in the local community. The community there, they absolutely love Packie. And there's I think a well-meaning, yet again, a well-meaning but a misguided movement in Oregon that Packie should be relocated to a sanctuary. And this is just my personal point of view, but you know, first of all, what is a sanctuary, quote unquote? You know, how do we define what that is? But Packie has been the subject of the dedication and the love of generations of caregivers at Oregon Zoo. And just from my affiliation with the community, I can speak to the extraordinary high level of care that the professionals there give their animals. And just the very thought, again, this is my personal point of view, but the unbelievable cruelty that would be associated with taking that beloved animal out of that environment with its human caregivers who are with it every single day and to relocate him to a quote-unquote sanctuary where he would be lonely. Can you imagine? That's like taking your dog or your cat out of your home environment and shipping it off and releasing it into the wild and saying, there you go, this is better for you because you're in your, quote, natural habitat, unquote. Can you imagine?
No, I can't. I
cannot. The abject cruelty associated with something like that, it boggles the mind.
The short-sightedness of individuals boggles my mind, and I understand that you must be incredibly diplomatic, Scott. I don't have to be diplomatic because it's my show, and
your show, Carolyn.
That's right. And so the short sight, the lack of big picture continues to astonish. And again, yes, it's true. We're all wanting the same end result. Animals and humans, you know, coexisting peacefully on the planet in whatever form that may take. But the agendas I see of some of my Hollywood fellows makes me crazy, and I think it comes from this idea of wanting to believe the worst, jump on the bandwagon, be a part of some social change, even though you don't have the facts. You don't have all the facts. You think you've got the facts, but guess what? You don't.
No, because it was told to them. They didn't do the research.
And not only that, but you're not willing to go out and get those facts because there are people in positions of power that won't work with you. Right. If you spout a differing point of view. Maybe that's why I'm not working as much as I should be. Interesting. Let's talk about.
We still like having you on the side of the fence, though.
That's right. Good. Oh, I'm here. I'm not tunneling my way under. I'm here to stay. But Camille, let's talk. You had a question also about.
And what about Lolita? I'm not familiar with the Miami Seaquarium, but does she have a similar story?
Yes, it is a similar story. There's a similar movement afoot that Lolita should leave the Miami Seaquarium, where she has resided for 43 years, and again receiving the adoration and the care and the daily enrichment of her human caregivers for over generations of human caregivers, I might add, with no variation in the the love and dedication from her human counterparts. And the thought that Lolita should be relocated to a sea pen. And first of all, she's an elderly animal. Right. And it's remarkable that she is the age that she is, because my understanding is she has long outstripped the average life expectancy of a killer whale in the wild. So, I mean, I think that alone speaks to the quality of care she's received.
Wow.
But, well-meaning efforts to say that animals should be relocated to a sea pen or a sanctuary without a full understanding of the implications of that are very, very challenging for those of us in the community.
There are, however, movements to combat that. There are, however, movements to take those decisions off the table, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, the zoological community, we're committed to what we're doing, but we're also committed to the individual animals. And, the fact of the matter is, for an animal of Lolita's age, she may not survive a trip like that. And, again, I would echo what I had mentioned about Packie, which is, can you imagine just the unintentioned, but the cruelty associated with something like that, taking an aged animal out of its environment that it has lived in for decades, and away from its human caregivers, from which it has very, very strong bonds, very strong relationships between the humans and the animals, and putting it in a strange and foreign environment, putting her in an environment that she doesn't know. I think the impact on that animal could be devastating.
I don't think, I mean, I don't know for a fact, but I can't imagine that she would actually survive it or survive long. We're going to take a very quick break, Scott, and when we come back, we're going to talk about something just slightly on the lighter side, and that has to do with a gold statuette that may be coming your way in the future.
You bet.
Okay, we'll be back. Stay with us, listeners. We are so lucky on this particular installment of the Vegan Teas to have Karen Wallington back with us again. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, this tea's savory. We've done a few sweet teases. Now this is a savory tease. And this is sun-dried Good Heart tomato sauce. Oh,
yes.
Tell us about it.
This is my go-to tomato sauce
Your
recipe.
go-to. Okay.
Absolutely. All right. I can make this in less than 10 minutes.
Stop
from
it.
Start to finish.
Stop it.
With the zucchini noodles. So, but on a cold night, I like to warm the sauce and noodles on the stove just a little bit. But you can add vegetables, your favorite veggies, to make it more hearty. And everybody loves this sauce. My dad loves this sauce.
This is the hero. This is what makes you the hero in the family, right?
Yeah.
This sauce. And it's less than 10 minutes start to finish.
Yes.
Listeners, you know you want it because I want it and I know you want it. So go get it. The recipe is on the Animal Magnetism site, and just devour it, and know that you are doing something so healthy for yourself and for your loved ones. See you next time. And we are back. I hope you stayed with us through the Vegan Teas, listeners. We're back with Scott Higley of the Georgia Aquarium. But first, you know what? I looked down at my whole ensemble
today.
Yes. And listener, I don't know if you can see this, listeners. I got this yesterday. Yep. Can everyone see it? I hope they can see it. This is the most beautiful little pendant that I got. It's a Kate Mesta design, and it's a dog tag with a silver elephant on it. And so I am telling everyone to go to Kate Mesta and KateMesta.com. Okay. And at least I think it's KateMesta.com. Anyway, Google Kate Mesta and go and just support because I'm supporting and she's supporting this show. God bless her. So I just thought that was fun, and I decided to take a little detour. Okay. And I can.
You can.
Hi,
it's your
Scott.
show.
Scott Higley is back with us of the Georgia Aquarium.
Hello.
Hello again. So before we went to that very short break, I teased everyone that we're going to talk about 1, 2, maybe 3, because you've got 3 nominations for a rather large gold statuette. The Daytime Emmys are coming up. Tell us about what you are nominated for, what you're associated with.
Well, I mentioned earlier about getting our positive messages out there to the public, and I think what I'm about to talk about is one of the key ways that we've been doing that for the past 3 seasons. Georgia Aquarium is involved in a weekly television show. It's called Ocean Mysteries with Jeff Corwin from Georgia Aquarium, and I'm sure many of your listeners are more than familiar with Jeff. Jeff has been in this field for many years. He's been on different shows over those years, and he'll kill me for saying many years. It's not that many years, Jeff. It's only a few years, relatively speaking.
Listen, I'm as old as Packie. So there you go, Jeff. Feel good about that.
We have been working with Jeff and a company called Lytton Entertainment for the past 3 seasons, and this is Lytton's Weekend Adventure is what this programming block is called, and Lytton Entertainment works with ABC. And they provide the 3 hours of federally mandated educational informational programming each week. So we are so lucky and fortunate that 30 minutes of that 3 hours is dedicated to work that is being done by Georgia Aquarium and many of our zoological partners. Okay. And so every week there are episodes that show tactically and physically what we're doing in support of animals, advocating for animals literally around the world. Jeff and some of our researchers and veterinarians and marine biologists have been around the world. Episodes that we did this year included a trip to South Africa, working with some native populations of South African penguins, work that we're doing in partnership with some organizations in New Zealand. So we literally are taking viewers around the world, and we're getting about 1.8 million viewers a week, which is a remarkable impact.
Nice. So what are the categories you're nominated in?
So we have 3 categories total, but I think the one that we're proud of all of them, but I think the one that we're most proud of, and it's with regard to Jeff, is his nomination as Outstanding Host.
Wonderful.
So we're very, very
Wonderful.
excited. We're pulling for Jeff. This is his second Emmy
Wonderful.
nomination for this show in the same category.
Wonderful. Now, wait a minute.
Wow.
Is Jack Hanna also nominated
Jack
in that
Hanna is.
category?
Yes,
Yes,
Jack.
he is.
Oh my God.
Hannah's Wild Countdown has 2 nominations.
I know.
My
You're torn.
my loyalties
You're
are
torn.
my loyalties. I'm divided. I'm
I
divided
know.
now. Oh, I
It's Jack.
just
it's Jeff.
I can't. It's all too much.
It's
all
tough.
too
You
much.
win either way.
It's
Yeah,
very true.
yeah.
Very, very true.
We'll actually see Jeff here at the aquarium this week. He's coming here to film an episode of the series that'll air during season 4, which is coming up and will premiere in September. But Jeff is also making personal appearances here at the aquarium in honor of World Oceans Day, which is June 8th.
Oh,
And we've actually expanded that into several days of programming that is in which Jeff is involved. He'll be making presentations to the public. He's doing a lecture as part of our Science on Tap series. So we're really excited to have him here this week.
Fantastic. Well,
Yeah, he's a great guy.
I wish you luck. Don't tell Jack.
Thank you.
Okay.
And we love Jack too. So
we
we're pulling for him as well.
absolutely listen. It's all good. It's just
All in the family.
It's true. It's all in the family. Now let's talk about the beluga whales for a moment.
Sure.
I just want to give my listeners a little bit of background when we use the term IUCN and the other term red list. So let's before we get into the Georgia Aquarium and the battle to bring the belugas over, let's just define those terms.
Right. So the IUCN is the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, and it's a highly respected worldwide organization based in Europe. And that's the organization that actually puts out what's called the red list, which identifies which species are threatened, near threatened, endangered, et cetera. So when you hear about a species being endangered, that's where that information is coming from.
Got it. Okay. I guess it was last September, October. We spoke
had
with
Billy.
We had Billy Hurley on, formerly one of the chief commanders.
My good friend.
Yes, our good friend. We're friends on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And handsome devil.
Yes, he is.
I'm getting beside myself.
And his head just got larger.
Yes,
So.
I'm sure. Because I hope he's listening. We spoke with him a few months ago, and I think it was really 3 days, 2 or 3 days after the application for the importation of a very small number of belugas to the Georgia Aquarium had been denied by the IUCN, and it was a severe setback. But it was very interesting because Billy likened it to halftime at a football game. He was just very gung ho, and he said this battle is not over, and it's just it's a setback. We've lost this battle, but we have not lost the war. So the Georgia.
And just a technical point, Carolyn, it was actually denied by the the agency of the federal government that's responsible for issuing permits for that kind of an activity.
Okay. Okay. So the IUCN simply puts out the red list.
Correct.
But it was
correct.
a national organization here.
Federal government.
Correct. It's a
The
division
federal
of NOAA.
government. Got it.
Okay.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the Georgia Aquarium filed a complaint, and is asked to have that decision reviewed and hopefully overturned. Where are we with that?
Well, we're kind of in a holding pattern right now. As legal cases can sometimes be, they can be somewhat protracted. But I will tell you that we're so dedicated to beluga whales as a species, and to my earlier comments about maintaining a population in human care, and to I'm sure to echo Billy's comments from a few months ago. We're as a zoological community, we're in danger of losing our population of belugas in our care in the coming years, and it's simply not because we haven't had success in breeding, as some would sometimes claim. More than half of the animals that are currently in our care across all of the facilities that have beluga whales in their living collections, more than half of the animals that are in care were born in human care. So we've had great success with breeding these animals. But we're at kind of a crossroads. We have an inopportune division of sexes and ages, and a lessening pool of DNA. So we need to introduce some new DNA to this population. And again, it's so important that we maintain this population by bringing some new animals into it, because it'll help us further the breeding, and it helps us maintain that control group that I mentioned earlier. Right. Belugas are near threatened in their natural habitats, and that's a concern. Because it's a serious concern. Because as I mentioned, the oceans are changing. I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. And belugas are under tremendous pressures from climate change and new exploration for natural resources in their habitats. They're Arctic animals and they live under the ice.
Right.
And so as the ice melts, it opens up new shipping channels, which creates additional ocean noise and pollution. And so it'll also cause changes in their primary food sources. And they'll probably have to travel longer distances and perhaps even change their geographic areas. So again, I think this is a species that we have to maintain a commitment to, because if we don't, how many times has it been proven in decades past that leaving animals to their own devices in the wild, in the face of man-made challenges, doesn't work?
Right.
And how many species have we lost?
Yeah.
So we don't want to lose beluga whales as a species. So it's important that we continue to conduct this exercise and make sure that we're maintaining our population in human care. And while we're in a bit of a holding pattern with the legal case, by the way, there was no other recourse to us as an organization leading this charge on behalf of belugas. We the Marine Mammal Protection Act outlined some very specific guidelines, and our only recourse was to be able to file a legal complaint to ask the court to overturn the decision. So that we could bring these belugas to the U.S. and continue to advocate on behalf of the species.
When do we envision, just sort of a guesstimate in terms of being out of a holding pattern? When do we see a decision possibly coming down?
Hoping for later this year or early next.
Okay.
And we're keeping our fingers crossed that timeline stays pretty firm. But Carolyn, we haven't been idle. Okay. In the time period from which you talked to Billy, we actually have launched kind of a new campaign for Georgia Aquarium and really for the community.
Let's talk about it.
It's called the Caring Together Club. And we liked those words, caring together, because we know that we care, the zoological professionals, we care for animals, we care about animals every single day, but we also know that our guests and our fans and our supporters care about animals too. So we wanted to bring those two incredible forces together and begin to educate the public about all the good work that we're doing, and also about this particular initiative, because it's so critically important, and we wanted to be sure that we were getting all the factual information out there about it, and really asking our guests to do something on behalf, other than we've as I said, we've been content to ask them to buy a ticket and come into our facilities and learn and be educated and have fun with their families. But now we want them to do something more. Right. And so we established an online action center called caringtogetherforbelugas.org. That's the URL. So your listeners who care to go to that site, you're going to be seeing a page packed with information about this beluga whale initiative, but it also gives you the opportunity to sign a petition in support of beluga whale conservation, which is what this program is all about. And you can also send a letter to the U.S. Department of Commerce, which oversees the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, just showing your support for this initiative and showing your support for beluga conservation. And our hope is that we can educate not just the general public, but also the members of the U.S. government that we're doing a good thing here. We're doing the right thing on behalf of animals.
We will have that URL up on the Animal Magnetism site, listeners. So please go and listen. I've been to the site. It is not dry. It is interactive. It's fun. It's and everyone will be able to walk away with a greater knowledge of why we need to do this and a greater knowledge of these animals. So I urge you strongly to go participate, learn, do. Andrea, you had a question.
What do zoogoers need to know about wildlife and wild places, not just in the zoos and aquariums across our nation, but around the world?
What do they need to know?
Yeah.
I think they need to know that there are things they can do in support of wild animals and wild populations. And there are, a number of ways that they can help. Certainly, donating is a good way to do that, because there's a lot of critically important work that's already going on, but it needs funding. Mm-hmm. And we live in an age when, unfortunately, funding sources are drying up. A lot of even federal funding is drying up and being cut and being allocated for other uses. And so, that's an important way to help and contribute. But I think also just making choices in your daily lives. I think we have harped on it for decades now, but continue to recycle and conserve water as much as possible. I think, areas of the country that go through drought, I know Southern California is having a terrible drought right now.
In the middle of it.
And so water conservation initiatives go into effect. And we had a terrible drought in Georgia a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And there were water conservation initiatives at that time. But, the drought is over, and now people have gone back to their old bad habits. And,
right.
There are just so many things that people can do in their daily lives. Don't pour hazardous materials down the drain. Dispose of those things properly.
Right.
Eventually, all of that stuff winds up in the ocean. Yep. And people sometimes lose sight of that.
Listen, it was Billy who gave me this statistic that 95% of the marine life, not just not just little fishies that we see close to shore, but marine life. 95% lives in the 2 to 5 mile strip around sort of
Remarkable.
and we've polluted that.
Yeah.
They're living in filth. They are
Well,
living in our filth.
Our Dr. Greg Bossert has been working with Harbor Branch University down in Florida, doing a health assessment study for many years now on some wild dolphins in that part of the world. And the news isn't good. These dolphins have been consuming everything we flush down our toilets for decades, and they're seeing in this particular population of dolphins, they're seeing emerging diseases which no one has ever seen in bottlenose dolphins before. And that's the impact of human actions, and it comes right down to the individual. When you flush your toilet, eventually that winds up in the ocean. It winds up in the Gulf of Mexico. It winds up in, depending on your part of the world, and the animals are the ones who pay the price.
We need them. They do not need us. Camille, you had a question?
Yes, Scott, if you had your way, how will zoos look in the next 50 years?
I think, Camille, you'll see a continued evolution in terms of the information that is shared with zoo goers and aquarium goers. Not only will you see, and we're seeing obviously the leading edge of this for the past 5 or 10 years, or perhaps even longer, but it's drawing the connection between just knowing about and learning about these animals, but also asking our guests to share the responsibility, and providing easy to absorb and easy to implement ways that they can help, that they can do their part. As I mentioned earlier, part of the basis of our Caring Together Club is to mobilize this community of people who probably don't yet recognize themselves as animal advocates. But what are the figures for someone who, for families who have cats and dogs? I think the vast majority have pets in their households. And if you have a pet in your household, then you're an animal advocate. And you clearly you love animals to the degree that you want to live with one. So it's really mobilizing the incredible power and understanding of people who again, 700 million guests worldwide visit accredited zoos and aquariums, and getting that incredible base of fans and supporters to take action. And again, taking action can manifest itself in any number of ways, but there are so many different ways that people can help. And I think you're going to continue to see in the messaging and information that's shared with zoo and aquarium guests over the coming years, you're going to see more and more ways that we're asking people to get involved and be active. Speaking
of guests to the zoo, last September, you opened a fabulous exhibit, Sea Monsters Revealed. Oh my gosh, I want to come there just for that.
I do too.
Tell us about it.
It's so fascinating. We and I don't know if you're familiar with some of the human bodies exhibits which have toured the country over the past few years.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very much the same thing, but it's in the aquatic realm, and it kind of weaves a fascinating tale, which is it begins several hundred years ago when the original ocean explorers began to set sail across the seas, and they encountered these unbelievable beings, these incredibly large things that they had never seen before. And so naturally, maybe this goes back to maybe this started hundreds of years ago, the human propensity to believe the worst, but they called them sea monsters.
Yes.
And so we're talking about, humpback whales, things of that nature. And so, unfortunately in those days they were hunted and killed in great numbers. Yeah. Fortunately, those days are past in most parts of the world. But as human understanding evolved and Charles Darwin came along, they realized they weren't monsters. They were just different types of beings that they'd never encountered before.
They were just bigger than us. That's all.
Telling the story. And then we actually have examples of animals, some of which we have living examples of in our collection, where the bodies are actually plasticized, but you can see inside the bodies and understand the workings of the organs that you see there. And it's a physiology lesson, but it's also a fascinating tale about the evolution of mankind's understanding of animals.
Wow. Wow. Well, you've got three ladies who are going to be winging their way toward you very, very soon.
As soon as you can get here.
Listen, and I'm assuming you're not coming out for the Emmys. Otherwise,
well, I'm not going to make it this year.
Okay,
so we're
right.
going to be cheering Jeff on from Georgia, unfortunately, and we wish that we could be there. But the animal advocacy work, which has to be done back here on the home front, is pretty pressing.
Yeah. Well, there would be some whining and dining coming your way, but we'll take care
Rain
of that.
check.
We'll take care of that when we are in Atlanta. Scott, I cannot thank you enough. I can't believe we're at the end of the hour. We still have so much to talk about. We're going to get you and Gray on to discuss the human nature aspect.
My good buddy Gray.
Yes, my mentor. I call him the Alpha and the Omega. I don't know if he likes it or not, and I don't particularly
One of the
care.
smartest people I've ever met in my life.
On the
so
planet.
scary smart and yet so unassuming.
On the planet. He's just, and the fact that I get to call him, friend and mentor is such a great, great gift to me. But
Same
you as well. So please give me a promise, whether you mean it or not, that you will come back on the show.
You got it. Next time I'll be live in studio there.
Oh,
How's that?
You tempter, you Jezebel, you. Oh, I don't know what I'm awful clamped.
It would be my pleasure.
Yeah, we're going to have you on again and very, very soon. Thank you. We'll talk at you again soon, listeners. Everything you ever wanted to know about Scott will be, and the Georgia Aquarium will be up on the Animal Magnetism site. Link in, get connected, and start advocating. Scott, thank you again so much. We'll talk at you soon.
Thanks, you.
And with that, we come to the end of yet another installment. Gosh, this show's good.
It is.
And I can say that I try and take a broad perspective.
You do.
I try and take an objective view, but man, that was great.
That was great.
What a great guy.
I got to say one thing.
Yeah.
It's been a year.
It's been a year.
It's been a year since you started this show.
Oh my gosh.
I just think folks need to know that,
Well,
and you're making a difference one day at a time.
Trying,
So
baby steps. Baby steps. Well, I have you, Andrea. I have you, Camille.
Yeah.
I have even Garrett, who's just filling in for my board operator Jamal. But Garrett, thank you for being a part of the show. Tony Sweet, Steve Rohr, who got me started in the whole thing in the first place. Everyone, listen. As I say, I'm a single voice, but boy, I'm surrounded by the best voices on the planet. So I thank all of you. But we're at the end, listeners. We got to say goodbye. I can't even talk now. I'm a little misty.
Now she's got.
I'm a little misty. I can't believe it's been a year since we've been doing this. Yeah. I want to tell everybody again that again this program brought to you by a lot of people. Coragem medicated ointment and cream for animals. Zoomility, thank you, Grace Stafford. Kong with their wonderful selection of pet toys and treats. Camille, are you doing something strange there in Ohio? And my newest sponsor, Coma Unwind, both Coma Relax and Coma Unwind, either the 12-ounce can of relaxation or the relaxation shot are the perfect ways to relieve stress and anxiety from the daily grind. Non-alcoholic, natural supplements, multi-berry flavor, Coma Unwind and Coma Relax. Ask your local retailer or order online at comawind.com. Unwind your mind. You deserve it. Thank you so much to my guest today, Scott Higley of the Georgia Aquarium. Thank you as well, again, to my wonderful co-host, Miss Andrea Compton, pulling double duty as my producer, Miss Camille Lacotte, our resident scholar on all things vegan. And thanks again to all the folks who make this show possible. Please join us again in 2 weeks for yet another great episode of Animal Magnetism. Thanks, and bye-bye.
Something tells me it's all happening at the zoo. I do believe it. I do believe it's true.